Testnet is live, everyone. Testnet is live. I put it in the chat. Umberto asked, when go live? I think it'll be awesome. When go live, Dev?
Yep. So I know everyone's getting itchy, especially with the because of like the Oracle fetch. There's a couple other projects that are waiting on that as well. So again, this was always our timeline. Like we were going to be like 60 days as a minimum. So now we're at that point where, again, we're, you got to take time. Again, you see the stuff that happened with like PulseX, like that stuff just happens, right? Like it's just new chain, things move around. So while we have a long time to have everything ready, it's not until stuff is sort of set in stone, things are launched, that you can start to do certain things, whether it's firing up infrastructure and nodes, and you see what other people are building and you're waiting on APIs and you get sort of final addresses, all this stuff, again, it takes all that time to wrap up. So again, that's the full version. Everything's full tilt there. It's running on fetch. The first thing that we'll have actually move over to Mainnet, which should be here very, very quickly, will be PulseChain Safe, which is it's a very, very simplified version of Gnosis Safe. We needed that for our multi-sig contract. So that's up. Everyone can use it. As of right now, you can't reference old safes. You can only create new ones. Some we'll play with in the future. It wasn't really needed for us. Gnosis is kind of a bit of a bear, honestly, to set up some of the front end. They have some interesting things that can kind of make it kind of temperamental. So we'll probably add some functionality there. But again, it's functioning, doing what we need. Anyone that needs it is more than welcome. Again, it's open. It's on testnet as well. That'll be the first thing that is live on Mainnet. The very next one will be Fetch, which is the Oracle. There's some cool stuff that, again, it's already running on testnet. We're going to put up the front end. It's an amazing product. The only downside to it really is trying to make the front end as user friendly as possible, because we want a lot of reporters, which are kind of like validators on the Oracle network. That'll be the next thing. And then right now with L, so that's the full version. Everything's beautiful, working fantastic. You can go to like the analytics. That was something that took some time. That's why we need the archive nodes. That was something you didn't see on the previous versions. So it's finishing up in audit right now. I'm sure we'll have no issues. And so that'll be the progression. So you'll see PulseChain Safe, then Fetch, and then LL. And as soon as Fetch is up, very quickly after that, you'll see a lot of other projects that are excited about Fetch. And we're very grateful and very excited for all the people that are going to be building on that as well. One, we love the community. We want to see other builders do great stuff. A lot of us are interested in using all this stuff, right? Like, for myself, yeah, I'm part of LL, but I mean, again, PulseChain's my house, right? Like some of these people I'm on a first name basis with. I want to use all their stuff too, right? So we'll be excited about using all the other projects and building with them and building together as a community. And then as far as timeline, so we're just getting close to that 60-day mark. So we're finishing it with audits. So we'll be coming out very soon. Like what was it? Soon to very soon to very, very soon. I would say we're in like the very. Yeah. We'll again, PulseChain Safe will be the first thing to come over. When you see PulseChain Safe, which again should be here very, very soon. When you see that, then you'll be ready on Fetch. When you see Fetch, LL is coming out very quick.
Yeah. Question two. I mean, beautiful interface. I mean, like everything's just like feels like it's in the right place. Very good looking design. Obviously, we can appreciate that.
If you'll go to the top on a small one, if you'll click loan, the ticker symbol at the top.
Yes, click loan.
I may have to check it. Maybe on the mobile version there.
Yeah, it's not clickable.
Yeah, I'll double check. So you can just see the pricing there, all that nice index. You can see in the right corner the sun. There's a light and dark mode on the right corner there. Nice. So you have all that functionality. If you want to click analytics real quick, on the left-hand menu there. Yep. And so you can scroll down. You can actually see these really nice, pretty charts of how much is staked, how much loan is staked, number of vaults, liquidations, all that kind of neat stuff. And then at the bottom as well, we have a really nice kind of overview of the protocol, all those stats there. So again, it's very holistic. As you saw in the start here, you can see all the videos that walk you through everything, including a total overview. The socials are in the corner. So there's a lot about making this thing feel very intuitive and very, very clean. So yeah, we're really very proud of the DApp. And a quick nuance thing. So the code itself is an audit, will be locked, it's done. That stuff's not being touched. But you can always make improvements on the front end. So it's one of those things where code product stuff is done, but we'll have future upgrades that come to the front end as well, where we keep adding and making this thing even more pretty and more sharp. So sorry, then please go ahead.
Yes. No, just a couple questions off the top of my head that I think could be interesting for people to understand. TCR, what is that, and what does the battery mean?
So the TCR is total collateral ratio, and that's the average of the collateral across the entire system. And so this will go up and down as people like liquidate and cool stuff. So when you have it above 150%, which is where it's pretty much always been, if you look at Liquidity or the other forks, everything functions as normal. When you get below 150 is when it goes in, that's what they call recovery mode. And that changes a few of the mechanics about how like USDL is minted, and makes where those the lowest vaults can be liquidated. And so that's to always help keep that extra buffer. So it's just below 150, there's extra provisions about making sure that you don't have any, essentially would be uncollateralized USDL. So you can see some of the percentages there.
Gotcha. And I'm looking between the stability pool and the staking pool. So I noticed, and this is testnet, but do you expect it to be similar? The APR to be way higher on staking USDL versus staking loan?
So again, it's testnet. I would imagine that both of those numbers are off in the direction that they're kind of intuitively looked at there. So I would imagine that staking loan is higher. Best guess, no financial advice, no forward facing stuff. Every single just caveat in the world, I would imagine it's higher. And then obviously 144% for the stability pool, I'd imagine it's lower. And part of that is because what happened, just natural testnet mechanics. So people go on, they do a couple loans, they make sure it works, cool, and then they kind of move on. So they leave those positions. Really, people get liquidated on purpose. They'll go in and do different things where they're just trying out the system. So when you get when people either don't maintain a position or they get really aggressive to go do other stuff, you can get on and look. And so like that's why the stability pool is paid out high, is because no one's trying not to get liquidated. They don't care, or even doing it on purpose, so they can just get a feel for what that looks like and how their position is. And then when it comes to staking loan, because there's just not a high amount of loans being taken all the time, as people aren't opening and closing and doing different positions. So that's why you kind of see those being so kind of on the ends of the extremes. So I would imagine again that both those kind of move toward the mean on a mainnet.
And the rewards too. So it sounds like staking USDL, you can get loan, and staking a loan, you can get PLS, or I'm just trying to go off the interface. I'm trying to remember what happened before.
The stability pool gets an extra incentive of loan early on in this phase. That's why it gets paid out there, as well as PLS. And then you can, the LP rewards is another interesting part that a lot of people will be really excited about. So when you stake loan, you get the redemption, as well as the origination fees. And that's how you end up with both USDL and Pulse. And then the LP reward, this is something that's really cool. And so early on, whenever you're staking, if you provide liquidity in USDL Pulse, that pair, you will be able to then come back and stake your LP rewards, your LP tokens here, and actually get loan token. So similar to a farm, but it's actually wrapped up inside of this. And this is to help with that early phase of USDL and making sure that it's very, very valuable. So there's the LP rewards, which again, get everyone involved in the system, sort of kickstart that liquidity value, which is important for something like USDL. So there's two sides. One, you have the LP rewards, and then the first 14 days, there's no redemption. So again, we'll give a little more of these like early phase stuff really close to launch. That way everybody's paying attention. But there's a few things that are different just right around that launch period to make sure that everything's safe and that the system essentially starts in a nice, clean way. So there's the LP reward, staking pool, and staking loan are all different ways people can interact to get extra value out of the system.
Gotcha. So there's different ways so you stake, when you're doing liquidity, you can earn loan.
Yep.
And if you're staking a loan, you can earn Pulse and USDL.
Yep.
And then if you're staking USDL, you can earn Pulse and loan.
Correct.
Okay. Just different ways to earn in the system. Okay.
Yep. And the thing about the stability pool, just quickly, I know we kind of ran a lot. We had some cool topics and we kind of got in the weeds on some fun stuff. One of the things about the stability pool, this is more just for framing for everyone. So when people, a question we get a lot is like, what's a safe ratio? part of it depends on what you're doing with the USDL or whatever it is you go and do, right? So if you're like, hey, what ratio is safe? And it's because you're going to go buy your Lamborghini. Okay, well, that's very different than, hey, I'm trying to extract value and trying to generate yield, right? So one of the things is, think something like the stability pool can kind of be your, hey, this is my first tier of yield that is super easy to pay back. So let's say that, hey, I've got 10K sitting in the stability pool. All right, well, let's say that my collateral ratio is more like 200%, something that most people would say is very aggressive, right? Okay, well, if I was at 200%, but I spent all the USDL, okay, now I have exposure, right? I got to be careful. Okay, but if I have, say, 10,000 USDL sitting here, I'm garnering yield. And let's say that, okay, now the price moves and I'm down to 180%. Okay, all I do is unstake from USDL. Again, it's a stable coin. It doesn't go up and down. I can come in and pay that back, bump it up to like 210. And I go back and I keep the yield and it goes down again and I can just keep moving it. So some of that ratio also depends on like how liquid the rest of the assets are. So one of the things that people can do is, basically just take a really high ratio and keep it in the stability pool, and they essentially could always pay it back, right? And then that would allow them to generate yield. So all I'm truly trying to frame for here is you can basically say, okay, I'm going to take a more aggressive ratio, but I'm going to keep a chunk in the stability pool, so it's really easy to pay back, but at least I'm still getting some yield. And then I'm going to do XYZ thing on the chain. And if you're basically saying, hey, I want to take this value, I'm keeping it on PulseChain to do stability pool and garner yield, that's part of that equation about like, hey, how risk averse should I be on just ratio? So if you're using it like a real loan, like, hey, I'm going to go spend this and buy a house or XYZ, okay, that's different than, hey, I'm using this for yield generation. So the stability pool to me is like the loan ratio, how much is in the stability pool, how much are you keeping in USDL versus like the next couple of assets. Like that's part of that, like being safe. What are you really using the tool for? That I think is interesting.
No, great point. I think the difference between taking loans for different stuff, I'm glad you called that out. It made me think one more thing and we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
Do you think that, there's different places right now, without a lot of projects being launched, the place to a lot of people are taking their PulseX and Pulse and stuff is doing LP, doing farms and stuff like that. Do you think, liquid loans are going to compete APR wise or otherwise with some of the stuff you can get on PulseX already with, the APRs, PulseX and Pulse and DAI and Pulse and stuff like that? Is it, do you feel like a lot of people are going to come over from the LP and the farming to liquid loans?
So directly, yes, to some degree, right? And then sort of like more like broad, like kind of answering the question holistically. The farms are kind of the only game. So one, I think that's been cool is that a lot of people have a much better understanding of just LP and liquidity providing just what liquidity is in general. So very cool there. I think it's a great experience for the whole community. And then I also think that when we look at, say, some of this price action, there's a lot of liquidity relative to time because that's the best game. That's the only game in town, right? So I think that we'll see yes, people come and put more value here versus in traditional LPing. And I think that'll happen for every project, right? So I think that not only will we see more games means like you're going to end up with a better share of the pool because there's more pools everywhere, but that we'll see, I think we'll actually some actual added volatility because right now there's a sort of an artificial amount of liquidity because that's what people are doing to get any yield they can. And I think as ourselves and all these other cool projects come out, that there'll be other stuff to do, and we'll see that thinning out of liquidity in general and all this cool stuff going around here. So I think that obviously there'll be great utility in the yield projects, the products that we have, and also it'll start to give you some. Again, that's where I was kind of getting at is like to me, it's you would use the protocol, extract value. The stability pool would be kind of like your go-to because it doesn't have time locking, and because it's risk off, right? Because it's a stable coin. So to me, my kind of like thesis a bit would be, okay, collateral ratio, risk off yield, risk on yield, right? So I think that if you were looking at this saying, okay, well, I can get 200% in Pepe, whatever, right? Okay, great. Well then, but now I have to play the Pepe game, right? Whereas let's call it 100%. Okay, well, like let's say I don't even want to give a number. Let's say it's substantially less in the stability pool, but I'm just getting the yield, right? So like I'm risk off. I can just count the yield, and I can sort of say that, okay, I'm willing to say all right, I've got this collateral ratio. I want to take this amount in a very, very safe thing where I know I can move it back. I'm willing to take less yield. And then I'll also have, whatever percentage in some more aggressive ideas. So I think that in some ways it'll just be competitive. And then in some, people will start to take more of a portfolio approach.
You think Richard sort of having that in his mind too, or the ability to turn some knobs or higher APR, more incentivization to keep that kind of LP within PulseX? I think there'll be some responses.
I do. And I think that's kind of healthy is, like I brought this up a little bit with some of like that 3-letter word that starts with an X. We're not supposed to bring those guys up. Teasing a little bit. So I think with like Jack and the Zen guys being so negative in the beginning, that was interesting, right? Like people listened. So I think that if you see, like the fiat guys and their decks, they do something interesting, right? Okay, does like, let's say that that RH or the PulseX guys don't do anything. I just think that the friction is engaging, right? And then like the 9-inch guys and Hexy Bastard and that crazy group of people, right? They've got their little narrative. And I think that spiciness between the three, I think that not only do you have the, like, what salvos do they actually shoot at each other to kind of keep trying to one-upsmanship, but also just the friction between, like, we've seen like the PulseX, like in our own community, like that competitiveness is pretty strong. I think that it's always net positive. So I think that we will see some cool, like I said, salvo shot back and forth, trying to one up and be the best player in town, keep all the liquidity. And then I think that even if it feels negative in short term, I think even just the friction between all those guys will end up being really beneficial for the whole chain.
I think, healthy competition and ability to bring more people in and have different, maybe even portfolio approach. I feel like that's kind of a balanced way of looking at it too. Very exciting, and can't wait to see it. Like this is people talk about just you could talk about all the macro and all the stuff that we don't like to see and price down and all this stuff too. But the thing about 2023 to me that I'm looking forward to is the just amazing amount of projects that we've all been waiting for to launch, other than PulseChain. PulseChain's launched. Everyone, by the way, take a second to be grateful. PulseChain launched. It could have not launched. If we could be in July right now and be like, oh yeah, 2 more weeks. It could be that way, but it's not. So it's live. PulseX is live. Everything's getting, or hopefully will be more polished going forward. RH, is doing his thing too. The devs are doing their thing. But come summer, end of summer, fall, all the products that you either sacked for or just been hopeful about or curious about, a lot of them will be on Mainnet. It seems to be. It seems like they're trending that way, at least. No expectations, but they seem to be trending the way of coming online. And Liquid One's one of them that a lot of people are excited to use. So very cool stuff, man.